That's right, that title is not a lie. You don't have to click off. I'm going to actually show you how to test for every single ghost on the hardest difficulty in Phasmophobia, the Apocalypse 3 15 times multiplier. Some people will tell you it's absolutely impossible to beat this challenge with some ghosts, but not me. I'm here to challenge yourself. I'm going to show you how exactly you can get each ghost in the Apocalypse 3 challenge so you don't have to worry about resetting for 50 hours until you get a Deogen. And you might be like, that's a bold claim. How do we know that we can actually do this and you're actually going to show us how? And that is because I'm crazy. I love Apocalypse 3. I actually got my Sunny Meadows badge by winning the Apocalypse Gold Trophy 50 times. I beat every single one of those games with Apoc 3. So I have gotten almost every single ghost in Apocalypse 3 and won with almost all of them. So I am going to show you exactly how you can do each of these ghosts so you're confident in your own challenge. Let's start out with a few disclaimers here because, well, I'm not a miracle worker, but this video would take way too long if I imparted everything. So we're only going to go over specific ghost tests. I'm not going to go over specific like APOC 3 strategies, like what objectives should you use, what order of items should you take, what should you do with this. We're going to have a little bit of talk of that, but I do have a video going more of that in depth that I'll leave linked up here in the top right. So you can check out that after you watch this one, of course. Second, I definitely recommend that you have at least a tier 3 firelight and paramic unlocked because having the infinite firelight duration is huge when you can't see because everything is super dark. And the tier 3 paramic is probably the best item in the game. There is so much you can do with it, and we're going to go through all of that here in this video. Third, you're going to change your hunt duration to medium. This makes hunts last 50 seconds instead of 60 seconds, and 10 seconds in APOC 3 is a long time. This still allows you to keep that 15 times difficulty setting so you can still get your gold trophy with this. And a lot of the stuff, pretty much everything that we talk about is going to be based on those 50-second hunts. Also, another thing this guide is going to be talking a lot about is timing hunts. So you need to find a way to time hunts. I have a guide that shows you how to set up live split, which is what I use. I'll leave the link to that in the top right in the description if you want to check that out, set it up yourself. But if you're playing on console or something and you can use like a stopwatch, your phone, whatever, something to time the hunts. And I'm going to go over specifically why this is so important because really I feel like it's one of the most underrated tips when it comes to Apocalypse 3. When I started timing my hunts for specific things just got so much easier. This is a very underrated tip. It sounds like you're going to be that super sweaty Phas player, but the things that you can do just knowing time frames is just absolutely important. So time your hunts. And lastly, I learned a lot of these tips from watching Mike and being in his Discord, so make sure to check him out. I'll leave links to his stuff down below. Super awesome. Very knowledgeable about Phas. He's one of the best players, I think. So check him out. So I said I wasn't going to talk about specific tips and strategies, but I'm going to go over this one, okay? Because this one is a little bit important. We're going to move our items into the front before we go into the house, and we're going to open the door. The reason that we're going to do this is because we want to specifically test if the ghost is going to roam to us to the front door and be a phantom, because it is shown, and it's happened to me time and time again, phantoms can still roam to the front door while you are outside of the house gathering your items. And it is a great way to test to see if the ghost, you need to be on your, well, be ready right away, basically, if the ghost is going to be in that front. That's the other thing you can test for. If the ghost does like blow out a firelight, set off the motion sensor, set off the EMF reader, do stuff like that, the ghost is either going to be in that entryway or it's going to be a phantom, and you really got to be ready if that is the case. Now, you might have heard me say in the past that wraiths could still teleport to the front door when you're outside of the house, and banshees could still roam to you as well. I don't know if that's still the case. Testing has shown that it looks like it may not be. Just keep that in mind, though. If the ghost does set something off, it could potentially be one of those. But lately, it seems like I'm only getting phantoms that do that, not the other stalkers. So it's something I said in the past, so just want to make a correction in case it has changed. All right, so if you go in, the ghost hunts, and it is a Deogen, what do you do? Oh, well, I'm going to show you my best strategy for dealing with that because there's a few different frames of thought, but the best way to me, lead it into the chapel area. So if you hear the paramic, you hear the ghost coming super fast, looks like it's making a beeline right to you, not doing anything random. Be ready. Have your camera in hand, have your incense, be ready. When the ghost comes to you, you want to incense it and then take a picture if you have to, do whatever objectives, if there's any there that you could think of, but walk it into the chapel. Some will say to go take it into the office to the left. I think it's too dark in there. I think there's too much stuff you can get caught up on. The chapel is well lit, wide open. You're not going to have any issues circling the Dio around the front stage area where the crucifix is. Now, let's say when you were setting up the items, you did realize that the ghost blew out a firelight, set off the EMF, set off the motion sensor, maybe it ticked off an objective you were not expecting. So now the ghost could potentially be a phantom or even another stalker if it still works that way. But I'm going to show you how to deal with these three. So first, for a phantom, if it did blow out a firelight and then the hunt was far away, you know you're going to be dealing with the stalker. Now, when you call the ghost to you, the ghost is going to be less visible in the hunt. So it's going to be very, very hard to see. If you have enough firelights lit up in that first area, you should be able to see that. Of course, another way that you can deal with the phantom is by taking a picture of it and it disappearing in that ghost event. Do that. Or if you need to video it and the video will disappear, the ghost won't be visible in it. So you can do that too. Phantoms will also leave off an EMF reading when they come to you, when they roam to you. Same thing like with the Wraith. When a Wraith does its teleport, it's going to give off an EMF reading. So how do you tell the difference between those two? You really want to set up motion sensors sort of in the line. So you see that the ghost blew out the firelight. You think it's in that area. You think it might be a stalker or something. Set up motion sensors. Then you can also set up salt. But if you see the motion sensors, they don't go off and then the EMF goes off, you're dealing with the Wraith that just teleported to you. And then it might set off the motion sensors, not step in the salt. That's going to be the main way you want to test for a Wraith. Banshees are going to be a little bit different. So first, Banshees can only roam to you if their ghost room is on the same floor as you. So if it's in the downstairs area of Sunny Meadows, it's not going to roam up to the front. It can roam towards the stairs and be close, but it's not going to roam upstairs. If the ghost room is on the main floor, then their roam to you is not going to give off an EMF reading like a phantom's would. So if you see motion sensors go off, ghost looks like it's coming to you, no EMF, you'll know it's a Banshee then. Now, if the ghost is downstairs, what you want to check for is during the hunt, listen for the paramike scream, the Banshee scream. That's going to be the best way to identify it. Banshee can't roam up here. I don't really feel Banshee, though. Right when I say that. A way to kind of be like, is this a Banshee or is it just a room close to the front of the bottom stairs? It's going to be, does the hunt start farther away downstairs? Like it was roaming to the front, it was near the stairs, came up fast, and the next hunt you don't hear it at all because it was like completely different. You don't even hear anything on the paramike. That's going to be a way to kind of be sus of it. But you really want to be waiting for that Banshee scream, which you can also get during the hunt. So you're going to be a distance away. Keep listening for that paramike scream. Now, I'll quickly go over my strategies for dealing with the Stalker. And if it's a Phantom or a Wraith and you hear that EMF go off, go ahead and incense it. Motion sensor goes off, EMF goes off, go ahead, incense the area. That's going to increase the likelihood of the ghost doing an event, so then you can get an easier picture. Especially if the Phantom hunts, getting a photo during the hunt is going to be next to impossible with that. So you really need to wait for that event. So you want to incense it. It'll increase the chances of a ghost event, and you really just got to pray that RNG is on your side with that. Now, if you don't hear anything in the open area there, you're going in. Ghost is not a Dio, not a Stalker. Next thing you're going to listen for, of course, is for the paramike. Listen for the footstep speed. This is going to be fantastic if you get a ghost that is slow or fast or easy to identify. Half the battle is identifying the ghost in APOC 3. If you know right away that that ghost is slow like a Revenant, that's at least like half the battle done. You're like, all right, I got to worry about is the photo and the objectives. Don't worry about anything else. We'll focus on that. If you're listening into the paramike, okay, and the footstep speeds are fast, the ghost is either going to be a Thay, Hantu, Moroi, twins if it's a fast twin, or a Raiju depending on if the electronic is close or not. What I like to do is later on set up a motion sensor near the path of the ghost, and then you can hear it speed up that way to rule out a Raiju, because early on you may not be close enough with the electronic to have it set off. To identify the main difference between Moroi, Hantu, and Thay, for Hantu, you really want to look for the ghost breath, which can be seen even in the dark far away, but it definitely helps if you have the firelights there. For Moroi, they're going to be slowed longer if you use the tier 2 incense instead of tier 1. They're also going to be slightly slower than a fully young Thay in the Hantu. And then for the Thay, it's going to be really fast at first. And then if you're close to it for hunts, it can actually age it to slow it down. But typically you're going to be stuck between Thay and Hantu, and you just want to look for the breath. And of course, if you listen to the paramedic and the ghost is slow, it's either going to be a revenant or the slow twin, which those are pretty easily distinguishable there. And of course, you can never rule out the possibility of a mimic. But how do you spot the mimic? Are you going to go with the video camera to look for orbs? Absolutely not. You're just going to be relying on the ghost speed. Just like we mentioned, does the speed of the ghost ever change? So you're going to do like if the first 3 hunts, the ghost is normal speed for 150%. If that 4th hunt, that ghost sounds super, super fast, like a Thay or a Moroi or something like that, then you know, okay, this ghost is a mimic. Now, you might be thrown off by if the slow twin, like if you had a fast twin, you're like, I think this is normal, and then it got slower, so just be careful of that. Hopefully the mimic was then also nice enough to mimic a Dio at some point to allow you to get a pretty easy picture. That is something that you do have to keep in mind, though, with the mimic. Keep it in the back of your head. If the ghost turns into a Dio, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Next, where you really use this tier 3 paramic a lot in this, and it's why I love it as the best item, because it's so versatile. It allows you to identify so many ghosts. You can actually identify a myling with a tier 3 paramic, and that's what you want to listen for next when you get close enough to the ghost. And I'm going to explain exactly how that's done, and it has to do with this little semicircle or rainbow around like 15 meters. For every ghost, if you see the ghost in that little semicircle rainbow area right here, then you turn off the paramic, you're going to be able to hear the ghost. However, with a myling, you're not going to be able to hear it when the ghost is in that area. That's the way to identify a myling with a tier 3 paramic. I'm going to go over an example right here. So the ghost is in the semicircle, we cut it off, and then we cannot hear it. We compare it to this game. The ghost is in the semicircle, we cut it off, and we can hear it, so we know that we can rule out a myling here. Now, if we rule out a myling, we're going to go into why timing hunts is so important. First off, it's going to have to do with the demon. So, demons can hunt at 20 seconds compared to every other ghost that's 25 seconds. So, if we know we set the hunt duration to medium, so our hunts last 50 seconds, if the ghost hunts between a minute 10 and a minute 14, basically, we could be sus of a demon. Now, we're going to know when the hunt starts because we're going to keep the doors open, either at the end of the hallways or the front door, or we're going to be flicking the light switch until we can't flick it anymore. An amazing tip to know if the ghost is hunting if you cannot hear it, but time the hunts that way, and that's going to help you know when the ghost does. Now, I would not rely on that alone to verify if the ghost is a demon. If it hunts early, because again, you could be a little bit slower to activate it or do this, so I would want to do the incense test where the demon cannot hunt or can hunt after a minute of being incensed compared to every other ghost, which is a minute 30. If you have both of those things, and obviously with the incense one, that's more reliable there. But I would be really looking for that if I think the ghost did hunt early. But we're going to start out here with the yokai test. So again, I like to call the ghost about 35 seconds into the hunt. Activate your radio and see if the ghost is going to come near you, because it should come fairly easily. Now, if you're activating that radio and it's static, like you're trying to find some radio station in the middle of nowhere, you probably don't even need to do that anymore. I'm just showing my age there. But the ghost does not come to you at all, then you'll know that the ghost is a yokai. If the ghost does come to you, is attracted by your electronics, you can mark out the yokai, of course. And then you want to be looking at the blinks. Is the ghost more visible to be an Oni or not? See if it's less visible, normal blinks. Now you want to look at the Obake and the Obake shapeshift. Now you're probably saying to yourself, isn't it going to be hard to see the Obake shapeshift in the middle of a hunt or an APOC 3? Yes and no. Again, timing hunts is important because the Obake has been shown that it is always going to shapeshift during specific blinks within the hunt. The time frames of that are different compared to the ghost model. So let me show you some time ranges here that you need to be looking for the Obake shapeshift. And it's kind of hard to remember. I actually have a note on my desk here of the Obake shapeshift timings because I do not have these memorized. So maybe we can just do that. See there, 7 to 9 seconds. I really didn't know what I was doing there. I just wrote that. 16 to 18 seconds. There you can see a lot better there. 24 to 26 seconds. 34 to 36 seconds, and then 39 to 41 seconds there. Look at that. Why is that important? Remember when I told you to call the ghost? 35 seconds. So you call the ghost to you. You're at prime range where you need to be looking for that shapeshift by the time the ghost is there. It's also a good time to get a ghost photo if you want to try to take it during the hunt. Again, if you incense it, photo cam, incense at the end if there's a little time left you got to have for safety. Good times all together. Did you see the shapeshift? If you did not, then you know that you can rule out an Obake. Of course, you can also try this again later if need be. Now let's talk about when the ghost hunts after the incense. We've already talked about a demon. It can hunt between a minute to a minute 30 compared to every other ghost. So if it does that, it's going to be a demon. But what we're going to primarily talk about here is the spirit. The wonderful, annoying spirit. It's definitely more annoying in APOC 3 to verify. So spirits, of course, will not hunt until after 3 minutes of being incensed. Well, the thing is any ghost can choose to do this on any difficulty, really. And now there is a way to confirm a spirit. It's a little bit more difficult to nail this off in APOC 3, but let me sort of explain what I mean here. So once you have successfully cleansed the ghost with incense, you cannot reapply that cleanse effect until after the first one ends. So for the spirit, that's going to be 3 minutes. So if you set up motion sensors or you have a ghost event around 2 minutes 45, 2 minutes 50 seconds into that first cleanse effect, and you then try to reapply that cleanse to it, it's of course not going to work because it's a spirit. So you want to see if after you use that second incense, because you know exactly where the ghost position was, if it hunts prior to 1 minute, you 100% have a spirit because no ghost can do that. If it hunts prior to 1:30, you know you're either dealing with a spirit or a demon. Of course, demons can hunt between a minute and a minute 30 after being smudged. And then if it does it after 1:30, you just kind of got screwed. Either it's not a spirit, could be, or it's just a regular ghost that chose not to hunt. And if you can do that, great. That's not really my strategy with the spirit when it comes to APOC 3, because you might not be close enough to know where the ghost position is. Maybe you're doing some tests there with crucifix range, and if you can get that ghost position, fantastic. My recommendation is try at least 2 hunts. If after both hunts, the ghost hunts after 3 minutes from being incensed, I would just go ahead and assume spirit and take my chances and leave if I have everything else. If I have more incense, I could try it again just to verify more. But either way, I'm just going to take my chances with that. Hopefully, you can just rule out a spirit if it hunts less than 3 minutes. So it's not like the worst ghost to have, but it is a pain to confirm, and you're kind of rolling your dice on if you have it. Also, if all that sounded really confusing and I ran through it kind of fast, I do have a full video going over that. I'll link it there in the top right, so you can check out that one after this as well to kind of make more sense of that. Now, in between hunts, you really do want to be looking or listening through the paramic for a lot of different ghost abilities or for different interactions that's either going to rule in or rule out ghosts. First one we're going to talk about is Polty. Now, during the hunts, the ghost might sound like it's throwing a lot. You can try to verify, like, okay, does this sound like it's throwing more than a normal ghost would? But the bread and butter that you want to absolutely be listening for is a Polty ability, which would sound something like this. If you get that, then fantastic. You know the ghost is a Polty, and hopefully you can get the other stuff and move on. Now we are down to some of the most garbage ghosts that you can get in Apocalypse 3. These ghosts either have a super annoying ghost test that they hardly ever do, or they're very difficult to confirm. Maybe a little bit easier to rule out, which is kind of what you're hoping for with these, but let's go through it. So the best way that I like to try to test for an Onryo, Mare, Shade, Yurei, Goryo is just really hoping that the ghost does something to eliminate them, and I don't have to deal with it. That's fantastic. But at this point, you're kind of just hoping for the best here. Now, if the ghost does a physical ghost event right on top of you, I recommend making sure that firelights are nearby so you can check for an Onryo, see if it's going to blow it out, or try to hunt on top of those firelights. Immediately try the Mare light switch ability because the ghost is right on top of you. Should be within that 4-meter range to do the Mare test. So go try the light switch. Hopefully the ghost will half touch a door to rule out a Yurei. See if it's going to do anything while it's in there with you. Or if you have any motion sensors, you can also check to see if the ghost is a shade, if it roams out of the room right away, or if it stays in there and does anything with you in the room. Ruling out a shade is going to be super helpful. Of course, another way to rule out a shade is going to be, does it ever do a singing ghost event? If a ghost does the ring around the rosies or the long hum, if it's a male ghost model, then you can rule out a shade, which is going to be great. Otherwise, you're going to have to set up motion sensors. If a ghost ever changes a ghost room, obviously you can rule out Goryo. Goryos, though, are really just a pain because through my hundreds, probably of APOC 3 games I've done, I find a lot of the time the ghosts never change rooms. I mean, we'll have like 90-minute games that the ghost never changes the ghost room. And I think it has more to do that the ghost is constantly hunting all the time. The hunts are longer, don't have a lot of time in between to really start roaming around and moving. And so I think that's why they really don't change rooms that much. Just a theory that I have just from playing a bunch. So it's kind of hard to really eliminate a Goryo. You kind of just want to see, does it ever hunt like outside of the room a bunch? Because obviously they can roam out the room and choose to hunt. Goryos, though, it's really rare with that. So if the ghost keeps hunting from the same room every single time, doesn't seem like it's ever changing, not doing anything, I think that that's when you would kind of assume Goryo. You're really hoping you don't have one. You're hoping you can get a clear cut. Okay, it started hunting from this room the whole time. I could tell from the paramic. Now it's hunting from a different room each time. I'm pretty sure that's a room change. We're going to go ahead and rule out Goryo. One interaction you're absolutely wanting to hear in that paramic is a light switch on. If you hear that, you know you can rule out a mare, and you can just be so thankful. Otherwise, you can try to get the mare ability. Again, if the ghost does a physical ghost event on you and you know you're within 4 meters of the ghost, flick on that light switch, see if it'll immediately turn it off. If not, you may have to wait to go in the ghost room to try it. But honestly, if you're playing like an hour-and-a-half game, which is probably going to be close to it when it comes to a mare, and you have never heard a light switch, I would assume mare. If you can't get the mare ability, it's just the odds are on your side at that point that the ghost should have flicked on a light at some point. Onryos, you can rule out if it ever tries to hunt on top of a lit firelight, but this can be kind of difficult in APOC 3 because you might not have a lot. You're kind of scattered about. Not a very accurate test. So the best way to confirm an Onryo, though, is to see, does it blow out a firelight less than 20 seconds that it just blew out? So here's what I mean by that. Every single ghost, once it blows out a firelight, cannot blow out that same firelight for 20 seconds. Except for the Onryo, and that's when it uses its hunting ability. So if the Onryo blows out those 3 candles and tries to hunt, on that third blowout where it tries to hunt, it'll check for another lit firelight. If you relight a firelight fast, it'll blow it out again less than 20 seconds, and that's preventing the Onryo's ability to hunt. If you can get that 100%, it's an Onryo. That's going to be very difficult for APOC 3. This has actually become my favorite way to identify an Onryo since I found out about this. Just like 100% of the time, confirm Onryo with that. It is a great feeling when you get it because Onryos can be kind of pesky. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm going to show you what I mean. Watch how this ghost blows out this firelight. We relight it fast and immediately blows it out less than 20 seconds. Lovely Urays. It used to be when you could hear their double door touch in the tier 3 paramic. That was fantastic. But now they've changed that, and I'm not going to lie, I don't really know how much you can really listen for a Uray in the paramic. Because again, Urays cannot half close doors. They have to either fully open it, fully close it. I haven't really found that there's a certain sound that'll show if it does that or not in the paramic. Maybe the slow creaking, maybe, but I'm kind of confused by that. So the best thing to do, you can also, after you incense a Uray, they cannot roam out of their ghost room for 90 seconds. So you can, again, set up a motion sensor outside of the ghost room because you're this late in the game at this point. See if the ghost is going to roam out. If it does, you can rule out a Uray. If not, just see if it never half touches a door, doesn't roam out, only full door closes, I would just assume Uray at this point. But really, they're kind of a pain. Not as big of a pain as the Djinn, of course, because to identify a Djinn with a broken breaker, you have to eliminate every single other ghost. So everything we talked about that eliminated ghost, yeah, you have to mark that off, and then you know that the ghost is a Djinn. Now, if you want some great tips on how to get your APOC 3 trophy, click or tap the screen now. I believe in you. Follow this, follow those tips. You're going to get the APOC trophy. Happy hunting, everybody. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next one.